And if you were to look at the nitty-gritty of those salary packages, you'd think, my heavens, this must be for two completely different jobs, two totally different types of work. It's not just the actual raw salary. There's different benefit packages. One has a maternity leave, the other doesn't. There's different CME educational leave packages, and it sort of was a thing that slowly, the major change happened in 2008, but there have been changes along those lines even before then. And I think we finally just got to the stage where we thought, well, hang on a second, why, either we have to do something or we're just going to have to accept that there are two categories of salaried specialists in this province.
There are outstanding positions that are available to be filled. So it's not as if the government said, you can only have 2 pediatric intensive care specialists. There are positions, and we can't fill them because the wage is not competitive. And what we want is a competitive wage for our pediatric ICU so that we can have healthy intensivists. There are days when the intensivists feel as if they're not sure they should even be doing what they're doing because they're so stressed and so overworked. And many people in different areas feel that way, and that speaks, going back to what Julia said, is at some point we're so overloaded because of the wait list and the demands for patient care that we start to question if we're actually providing the best care to our patients anymore because we're just so stretched in so many directions. And that's when it gets scary, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to join this effort, was because I thought, what have I signed up for? I didn't sign up to do less than what I began to do. And lately I really feel like what I'm doing is less, just because when you have an 18-month wait list to get to see you and you're trying to see as many new patients as you possibly can, you know that something is suffering. And part of that is your own mental health.
And I think for physicians it is a very difficult situation, because if you're here, one of the things that will be said, well, it's unacceptable to have a call night that's not covered. It's unacceptable. The health authority cannot have a gap, and put up signs that says, by the way, don't come, we don't have anyone on tonight. That's unacceptable, particularly at the tertiary center. So if you are saying, well, you are actually asking me to do too much, someone will say, well, why don't you just cut back? Because for physicians, that's a withdrawal of services, and that is seen to be essentially unprofessional. So you don't have the option of saying, okay, I'm just going to stop having these clinics and I'm going to not do that call, and I'm just going to say it's too much and that's it, and that, here, this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I can do safely. You actually don't have that option as a physician. And so you're left with, if you're going to withdraw services, you have to leave. And so it really becomes, when you get down to it and you're saying, well, I actually don't have that many options. And so these are the two options, and which is the lesser of two evils. And I think really we feel, we're not happy that we've come to this point. And as I said, we fought long and hard to stay and to fix things. But, there has to be give and take, and so far we haven't seen that at all. There's been just no movement.
Can you comment on how this wage disparity, the government's role in creating this disparity, if at all?
In what sense?
The two tiers. It had its genesis in the breast cancer scandal, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm. And it was in response to an acknowledged vacancies in pathology that were well recognized long before the Cameron inquiry. And pretty much most of the services that are here are in the same situation and have been pointing this out. So, did the government do the right thing? Well, we have, I think all the pathology positions are filled. I worked in the cancer center for the first, from 92 to about 2001, to help the very few radiation oncologists, to help the 1 or 2 medical oncologists were there. So I was there as a general internist doing clinics and helping with chemotherapy and seeing the radiation oncology patients. I knew how desperate it was in those specialty areas. We couldn't get people. They would come in for 6 months. They would come in for 8 months. They might stay a year and 1 month, I think was the longest, until the government acted to improve the remuneration, because they were in competition for highly trained specialists that were scarce. So then in 2008, with the additional increases, it didn't solve the problems in pathology, it solved the vacancies in pathology. But when you leave services that are chronically unfilled, obviously there are going to be difficulties, even when you have the same numbers, because you have to start building up the teamwork. So, what they did was great for our cancer care services and for pathology services for the province. And what we're saying is, can you help us? We need help. We can't get them. They don't, there's too much competition. They're not coming here. And there's an expectation that native Newfoundlanders will stay regardless. And as a native Newfoundlander, I've stayed for a very long time, and it's a personal cost to me to take my small children and leave my elderly parents. So I didn't have great conversations with them over this last couple of weeks. But
it's interesting you were saying you were having this anxiety dream about a tribunal. It sounds almost like the Cameron inquiry in a sense.
Well,
it was see this heading is
because there's always that question. Yeah. Didn't you know? You're an educated person. Did you have any insight? And you're there going, oh, you're right, I have to see these people because they need to be seen. There's no question. Medically, they need to be seen. I have to do the call. I have to go in on the weekend. I have to make that the number one priority. But at a certain point, you say, well, are you actually doing people a service by continuing to overextend yourself? Right? And that's when they say, well, Dr. Trahey, didn't you know? And it's like, I'm sitting there saying, well, how do I respond? No, I wasn't mentally unwell, so that I didn't have insight, I didn't understand. I've said no, and then you kind of get into this helpless sensation of like, apparently I can't say no. And the only way to say no is to say a very final no. Okay, this is how I say no.